Coming to paperback and e-readers, Spinsterella Goth Girl Summer. Take a trip into the macabre world of goth modeling in the new millennium in this all-new Spinsterella story. Pre-order your copy of Spinsterella Goth Girl Summer at Amazon.com and other online booksellers everywhere. Better get the coleslaw, y'all, cause we're having us a barbecue. Man, these nerds are their own worst enemy. Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg once proposed wiping users' Facebook friends list in order to boost the platform's relevance. This was revealed in an email that was part of an FTC antitrust lawsuit against Meta, and in a case where the FTC is looking to try to break up Meta's Instagram and WhatsApp into separate companies to keep Meta from becoming a monopoly over the social media marketplace. Now, this entire idea from Mark Zuckerberg was supposed to be one that would foster people into having to start over as related to finding their friends in an effort to try to make Facebook relevant as related to social media. Now, Facebook in and of itself is seen as a platform for much older viewers, and what Mark Zuckerberg wanted to propose was wiping out everybody's friend list and have everybody go out here and look to try to find all of their friends and start over once again. And this entire plan, in and of itself, basically shows me why a lot of nerds wind up doing themselves in because they just don't understand how things relate to life as related to the real world. Now, Mark Zuckerberg basically came up with this proposal because he was seeing Facebook and as a platform becoming less relevant, but his whole plan would have basically led to Facebook heading down the road of MySpace, the predecessor of Facebook that wound up going into obsolescence around 2010 when MySpace decided to go out here and launch 2.0, and as it launched 2.0, the entire platform fell completely apart as it looked to reset itself. But what was happening with MySpace was the platform was no longer a place for friends. No, what happened with MySpace is it became a place for trolls. It became a place for attention seekers and drama kings, and that made it where many of the people who originally came to the platform, such as musicians, artists, and writers like myself, no longer wanted to be on the platform anymore because the platform had become completely toxic due to these attention seekers just seeking to get clicks and views and create lots of drama. And as a result, many people went to migrate over to Facebook, hoping to make social connections as related to art, literature, and music, hoping to gain a larger audience for the products that we create. And as we came on that platform of Facebook, we reconnected with a lot of people that we knew and got to know a lot more of our customers. That's what's happened to me on the entire Facebook platform. I use the Facebook platform in conjunction with my YouTube channel to build and expand on my audience. And moreover, I use it to go out here and get the word out about my books so that I can reach new readers and new customers. And Mark Zuckerberg's whole proposal would have derailed my entire business because wiping out my entire graph and making me start all over again would have just basically destroyed my entire business here at the SJS Direct Imprint because I used to get a lot of my readers from posting on Facebook book groups and going out here and letting people in my network know that books were available. So that basically would have destroyed a lot of my business and would have destroyed the businesses of lots of people, would have destroyed the businesses of people because there was no way for you to go out here and rebuild over 2 decades of connections in a little bit of time. That's what Mark Zuckerberg was not understanding because he wasn't seeing things from the perspective of a business person. No, he was seeing it from the perspective of a nerd. And when it comes down to the perspective of a nerd, many nerds really don't have any sort of critical thinking to really look at a picture and see the bigger picture. No, when it comes down to many of these nerds basically live in their own world, and as they live in their own world, they basically see the world from a very narrow perspective because of the tunnel vision that they have. And because of the tunnel vision that they have, what they do is go out here and become their own worst enemy, undermining themselves and undermining any venture that they get involved with. And this entire plan that Mark Zuckerberg was proposing would have basically destroyed Facebook's business and made it even worse than MySpace, because if you deleted everybody's friend list, basically people would have no incentive to come to the website, and if people had no incentive to come to the website, the entire foot traffic would completely die off as related to that platform. And if your platform basically does die off as related to foot traffic, your website is dead as related to being a business. Because what drives a platform are two things. One is foot traffic, and foot traffic is basically driven by content. And if content creators see all of their connections basically cut completely off, what's going to happen is what happened to MySpace is that people are just going to migrate over to another platform. And that's where the arrogance of Mark Zuckerberg is on display here. He basically thinks people are dependent on Facebook and would be so dependent that they would basically go scrambling to try to find all of their former friends. But that's just not going to happen because people had thousands of friends on the platform, and again had thousands of friends on the platform, and it would be nigh impossible for anyone to remember all the people in their original social network. So this entire proposed plan would have basically destroyed Facebook as a platform, destroyed it to the point where Facebook would be as irrelevant as MySpace or relevant as Cosmo.com. I mean, this would have basically destroyed his entire platform and took Mark Zuckerberg from being a billionaire to just being broke. That's what would have happened if he had participated in this plan he proposed in 2022. It basically would have been the thing that would have alienated users, just like MySpace 2.0 alienated users, and basically led to people becoming so disgusted that they just stopped using MySpace. And that's the road that Facebook was on due to the arrogance of Mark Zuckerberg, who really still, even though he has created a social network, just doesn't know anything about how people socialize, because social media basically isn't the only way people socialize. Again, people do go to websites basically to, again, hang out with people that they know online or acquaintances online, but this basically would have driven people away from Facebook as a platform, and this platform that was skewing older wouldn't be skewing anymore. No, what would have happened was you would have basically, again, driven people completely away from this social media platform, and it would have just completely imploded. Now, what's happening here with Mark Zuckerberg is no different than what's happening with Elon Musk as related to X. We basically have a pair of wealthy individuals who seemingly now have a god complex and believe that they are the gods over social media. And because they believe that they are gods over social media, they basically, what they want to do is make it into a fiefdom where they want to be able to arbitrarily decide who can be where. But what they don't see is that social media is not the world, and in the real world, real people don't depend on these platforms. Now, many of the younger people who grew up with the internet, they might depend on these platforms, but with Facebook skewing older, many of the older people like myself who grew up in an age where where social media wasn't a way of life for us, we can charge these social media platforms to the game and keep it pushing, because again, the internet isn't the world. No, the real world is the real world. And when it comes down to nerds, many nerds will get great success. Unfortunately, they don't see how they get in their own way as related to maintaining that success. And many more nerds don't see how they undermine their own success by thinking that they're so smart. But what they do is actually, because they're their own worst enemy, outsmart themselves out of their fortune by trying to go out here and do things to try to control people. And in their efforts to try to control people, what happens is they wind up losing control over themselves, which makes them lose control over everything in their empires, and they wind up going out of business, not because of a decline as related to the business, but because of decisions that they make. Oftentimes, with a lot of nerds, they're their own worst enemy because they don't really relate to people. They can't relate to other people's needs. They can't see how other people or consider other people. And this oftentimes is their own undoing because the nerd, again, they know technology, but they don't really get to know people. And since they don't get to know people, what happens to the nerd is they wind up self-destructing, and that's basically what would have happened to Mark Zuckerberg as related to this whole situation of deleting everybody's friends list. Deleting everybody's friends list would have made it where people would have unfriended his business and basically just again stopped using Facebook, and Facebook would have imploded as a business. And that's what happens with many of these nerds. Again, a nerd oftentimes they show us why nobody wants to be friends with them because of the antisocial things that they do. The antisocial things that they do are the thing that drive people away from nerds because a lot of nerds don't understand things like body language, nonverbal cues, and computers further exacerbate this. They don't really know how to read people. They don't know how to communicate with people. They don't know how to connect with people. They don't know how to have relationships with people because only a completely insensitive person would even propose such a thing as deleting everybody's friends list, and even a really incompetent person would propose this because you've got many businesses on here, and many of these businesses have people following them and have connections with these people. And again, this is how customers find their products. This would have basically derailed Facebook's business, but it's par for the course when you're dealing with a nerd. And again, nerds, when they come to power, don't really understand their responsibility to others because they believe that the business is all about them. They believe that businesses are all about what they want, but not thinking about how a business is supposed to serve the people. Because again, nerds have a problem with people. Yeah, they're good with technology. Yeah, they're good with science. They're good with math. But the one thing that they lack is the ability to connect with people. And that's the great irony regarding Mark Zuckerberg and this proposed plan. It's a really, again, irony because you made a social network so people could connect with each other, but it just shows how disconnected he is with reality, shows how disconnected he is with reality, that he thinks, oh, if I erase everybody's friends list, it'll make them more interested in being a part of a website. No, if you were revealed to have deliberately done this, you would be more of a pariah than Elon Musk. I mean, Elon Musk in and of himself was another nerd who basically showed the world how much of a racist he was and how much of a just insensitive he is as he created this Department of Government Efficiency. And as he went out here and showed glee at taking away American citizens' jobs, it basically alienated him from the world. Because instead of looking to serve people, he looked to go out here and oppress people. And that's what a lot of nerds do because nerds have serious power issues. Many nerds have power issues because they were the ones who were bullied, they were the ones who were humiliated, and they want to use their power and leverage to go out here and hurt other people. But what they don't see is how they hurt themselves. They don't see how you're going to hurt yourself because you're your own worst enemy. And what happens to many nerds is that they don't really understand that, you have to consider other people, especially in life. You have to consider other people and see where another person is coming from. And that's a big problem with a lot of nerds. They lack empathy for other people. They lack empathy and compassion for other people because they think that everything is about them and showing how smart they are. And this is how they outsmart themselves. This is how many nerds outsmart themselves because they live in their own echo chamber thinking about how smart they are. And because they're thinking they're so smart, they don't see how they're basically opening the door for competition to come in because other competing platforms like MeWe and many others like Blue Sky and Threads well, Threads is owned by Facebook, the competition can come in and take your spot, and take you out of the marketplace, and could further damage the business more than this antitrust lawsuit. Now, this antitrust lawsuit shows us why we really do need to break up these internet monopolies, because a lot of these people are having God complexes and believing that they're better than everyone and want to try to control everyone through their technology, not understanding that this technology can change over time, and you being the big wheel could basically lead to you becoming irrelevant. That's what happened to many of the early .com businesses. Many of those owners basically became full of themselves, and as they became full of themselves, these nerds' insecurities came to the surface and made them their paranoid, and as they became paranoid, they became their own worst enemies, because people started to look at the flash of their businesses. These venture capitalists and hedge fund managers started looking at these businesses and seeing that they weren't going to pull a profit, and that's what led to the first .com crash. And what I believe is going to happen is, if these nerds keep pushing, we may see the crash of social media, because what will happen is that these nerds will start to get super full of themselves, super full of hubris, and as they get full of hubris and show us the jerk they actually are, what's going to happen is that people are just going to say, hey, I don't need to use this website, hey, I don't really need this platform to do anything, I can just go out here and find another place to go. That's what will happen with people, is they will go out here and find another platform, and again, go to a competitor, and that's going to lead to the fall of social media, because social media seeming these days to me, I've been here for many years online, and it's seeming like people are becoming more and more antisocial, more and more hostile to each other, and this social media that was supposed to bring people together is pulling people apart. That's what I'm seeing right now, because people have, after the pandemic, have become extremely selfish, extremely greedy, and extremely narcissistic. And this whole plan to have done this would have led to the beginning of the end of Facebook, and led to Facebook basically again reaping what it sowed, greater than what it sowed, later than what it sowed. I mean, Facebook only became big because MySpace made a tactical error, and this is par for the course with many of these tech companies. Again, these tech companies will ride high for a decade, maybe a decade and a half, sometimes even 20 years, but eventually what will happen is they will do themselves in, because a company run by a nerd really does itself in, because it really does not treat people with respect and doesn't really care about the people who are a part of their business. And that's basically what Facebook would show by deleting everybody's friend list. They would have shown that they are not really concerned with people, and that would have been the downfall of Facebook. Had they went along with this plan, it would have shown that Facebook wasn't a place for people to have a social network, but was run by antisocial people who became more obsessed with power and control that it forgot what the core of its business was, which was serving people. Now, if you want to learn about the behaviors of individuals like this and what leads to them heading down this road to this antisocial online behavior, you can pick up my book, Stop Simping in Cyberspace, on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find Stop Simping in Cyberspace at other online booksellers like Draft the Digital, Google Play, Barnes & Noble, and big box retailers like Walmart and Target. And if you want to read a story about an online business run by one of these types of individuals in the era of the peak of the .com era, you can check out my novel Spinsterella Goth Girl Summer, where I show how Matilda is modeling for one of these online businesses in the year 2000, and what possibly led to the complete decline of that business due to the insecurities of that owner. And if you want to see me make more videos like this talking about technology, you can drop a donation to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Coming to paperback and e-readers, Esteem Season of the Witch Girl. The aspiring angel takes on a wicked teenage witch in this action-packed, all-new Esteem series adventure. Pre-order your copy of Esteem Season of the Witch Girl at Amazon.com and other online booksellers. Now available in paperback and e-readers, John Haynes, A Thorn in My Side. The man who rules the world takes on an agent from the CIA, from the Black Boule, in this all-new John Haynes series adventure. Get your copy of John Haynes' A Thorn in My Side in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers everywhere. Now available in paperback and Kindle, Stop Simping in Cyberspace. Learn how to avoid predatory females like Instagram models and e-girls in their virtual con games with Stop Simping in Cyberspace. Get your copy of Stop Simping in Cyberspace in paperback and Kindle today. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.